after the events of Avengers Endgame as they look to raise a family in a suburban America, which feels a lot like the TV sitcoms we've seen over the years. Let's introduce our guest today. As sword agent Monica Rambeau, Teyonah Parris. Playing the wisecracking, funny next-door neighbor, Agnes, Kathryn Hahn. And as Wanda Maximoff herself, Elizabeth Olsen. Before we chat, here's a clip.
First-person intel from inside the Westview anomaly.
What are we looking at here? Is it an alternate reality, time travel?
It's a sitcom.
Starring 2 Avengers?
It's a working theory.
Well, I know the apron is a bit much, dear, but I am doing my best to blend in.
Hello, dear.
Hiya, kid. Hiya, kiddo. Life moves pretty fast out in the suburbs.
Something's wrong here.
Should we just take it from the top?
I don't know how any of this started.
What is outside of Westview?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that's about. It's probably just a case of the Mondays. Am I right?
Yes, my love.
Are you crying?
But I'm invested.
Fantastic. I'm going to watch it all over again, meaning every single episode. So my first question is, this is a series that pays homage to sitcoms and straddles different eras. And I'm wondering if each of you could tell me about a specific part of the crafts team. It could be production design, it could be costumes, that informed your performance. Teyonah, let's start with you.
Yeah, sure. I would definitely have to say wardrobe for me. Working with Maya Rubio, who's the head of our wardrobe design, and her team, they were so amazing. And I had no real clue. I didn't know about the astronaut suit. I didn't know a lot of things coming in. So once I got in the room with them and we started going over what those looks were and talking, and simultaneously talking with Matt and Jack about who Monica is, and coupling that with wardrobe, it really started to help me fill out my imagination really about who this woman was and what her journey would be in WandaVision.
Kathryn?
I would have to say that my incredible hair and makeup team, V and Cindy, were instrumental in it really felt like these Agneses were a collaboration. I never felt that closely in line with the wigs, with the makeup, that it felt so seamless. So I would say, for me, and coupled with, like Teyonah was saying, the amazing costumes by Maya. Yeah, for sure.
Elizabeth?
Well, it's hard to pick one because physically it's so important to feel in the era specific as we had traveled through for our journey, or at least specifically my journey. But I do think that the set design was really Mark, our production designer. Or art director, production designer. Sorry, I don't want to get that wrong. He just made such quick and incredible transformations that I just don't think a crew has had to do. It was really challenging, and I just loved how the home continued to relate to itself, but continued to transform throughout the decades. And I think that was something that I loved so much. And it's hard to talk about all this without talking about Jess Hall, our amazing DP, who used vintage lenses, made lenses, used old lighting. Like he was incredible. And that's why the show, I think, looks as special as it does.
Mm-hmm. So Elizabeth, you've played Wanda before the series across 5 films. What did you learn about her here? What that you didn't already know? I mean, the arc of the show is based on it was mapped out. The arc of the show maps out the stages of grief. Mm-hmm. And then there's also this notion that everything that is behind white picket fences isn't perfect. Mm-hmm.
Yes. The thing that I learned most from her with this specific story that we were telling is if she for the first time has this sense of agency and making her own decisions that she hasn't really had. She's kind of moved around a bit based on circumstances. And this is something that even if she was aware of it or not, she completely controlled on her own, even to a fault. And by the end of it has great accountability. And that I think was the newest journey for her and her processing of her experiences.
Teyonah, tell me about finding Monica. I mean, she's a shoulder, and she's an ally to Wanda.
Yeah, for me coming in and really, this was Monica. We see Monica before as a young girl in Captain Marvel, but in WandaVision, we really got to experience her as an adult and find out what she's been doing since we last saw her in Captain Marvel as a young girl. And so working with Matt and Jack and Mary on figuring out what from the comics we were going to be bringing in and what from, and just for my own personal research, looking at the young actress, Akira Akbar, her performance and her relationship with Carol Danvers and Maria, her mom. I just wanted to take all of those things, and I read lots of comics. Monica's had a very long legacy in the comic books, and just trying to figure out what I could pull from there that could inform the performance and the storytelling here, and hopefully further, and just really a really great conversation and hashing out with Matt, our director, and Jack and Mary, our head writer and producer.
Kathryn, I was going to ask you if Larry from Three's Company was an inspiration, but then I thought maybe that's not the right question to ask. But I was curious.
He's in there as well. Lenny and Swiggy. Ooh,
I was curious your inspirations for Agnes.
I mean, there were so many. I would echo Teyonah with her a description of going back to the comics. You know, Agatha Harkness, who I ended up being, there's such a deep, beautiful wealth of information that whether or not it made it into this iteration was so fabulous to know that she was the underneath, I guess, and that I got to just literally, you know, Agatha got to be an actor and got to pretend through all these decades. And so I think for each, I would say definitely my maternal grandmother was, I could not even consciously, but I just heard her sing-song voice, I think, for definitely the 50s and 60s, that, you know, it just kind of, everything kind of ended on a sentence, ended on a question. Like there was no, so she was in there. I felt she, you know, God rest her soul, had a clothing store called the Californian in Lyndhurst, Ohio, that sold shirts that said Paris, London, Lyndhurst. And I think that she would have gotten a real treat out of seeing those iterations, because she always thought I dressed. She always wanted me to brush my hair and wear high heels, and I was just not that granddaughter. So this was for her.
Now, one of my last questions is, during the shoot, there was a mix of visual and practical effects that matched the era of the episode. Did this present challenges for each of you, and had you encountered production elements like this before on a set?
I'll go. To my head.
You had to do the most.
I think I enjoyed having the practical aesthetics there because it was fun to interact with them. I think the one that was really challenging was the quick changes. There's a whole sequence of me changing coats and having to overlap crazy expressions and freeze, and then have someone in green put a different coat on me and then resume the position. It felt so archaic, and I think it added, Teyonah was with me for that.
I was watching the whole thing.
It added to the whole chaos of that scene Teyonah just, doing such a brilliant job, like just telling the longest story. And I really do think that scene was one of my favorite things to watch because it was such a wild ride shooting.
Literally someone would hop out of the closet dressed, with different coats. And Lizzie's like, it was amazing.
Oh, that's incredible. I had no idea that was actually practically happening in this scene.
Yeah.
I love it. That's so awesome.
Kathryn, what about Agatha's basement?
Oh, yes. It was a dream. I mean, the set was incredible. The set was incredible. Lizzie and I spent a long time in there. Lizzie spent so long on wires that in a single, like, you have no idea how long this woman was suspended, 3 feet off the ground. Yeah, that was like I'd never done anything. I mean, Anthony, I've never done anything on this scale before. So I constantly feel like I had my jaw on the floor. Like, I mean, Lizzie was an amazing guide to help me through the Michigas. Like, there was so much. What's the balls take? Like, apparently they have a silver ball.
Balls and
Oh yeah, balls and something else. Balls and charts. They kept saying balls and charts. I was like, yeah, balls and charts, balls and charts. But I had like no idea what people were talking about. So it was the fact that it was able to feel those so intimate and so such an ensemble, and to feel like it was so performance based and that it was based in feelings with all of that we were describing around, was something I will just hold to my heart forever. This one was real special.
Yeah.
Fantastic. WandaVision, everyone. Teyonah Parris, Kathryn Hahn, Elizabeth Olsen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Next up.